recent Supreme Court ruling will affect solar installations for years to come. Beginning July 1st, Indiana has gutted net metering rules that apply to rooftop solar. And a study by Wood Mackenzie shows that over the next 2 years, we should see a decline in the growth of solar installations. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the bad news for solar for the week of July 4th. Now, it's not all bad news, but a recent Supreme Court ruling in the case of West Virginia versus the Environmental Protection Agency has gutted the EPA's ability to regulate fossil fuel emissions. Advocates for solar say this will have a devastating impact on the ability for this agency to mandate solar installations over the coming years. This has undermined the EPA's authority that has been in existence since that agency was founded in 1970. Beginning July 1st, customers of investor-owned utilities in Indiana, those utilities are Duke Energy, Indiana Michigan Power, NIPSCO, CenterPoint, and AES Indiana, will no longer be participating in standard net metering programs. Now, net metering is a way to encourage people to adopt solar. Essentially, when you're overproducing solar in your home, it feeds back to the grid and you receive a one-to-one or a retail credit for this excess energy. So hopefully at the end of the month, your energy bill will be zero. Well, recent legislation has essentially done away with this practice in the state of Indiana, stating that instead of paying retail, they will pay what's referred to as an excess distribution generation fee, which many advocates have said is amazingly small for the value of the energy that is produced. Now, a lower court in Indiana did rule that this excess generation fee did not come into play until after you had exceeded your consumption for the month. So essentially, you could do a one-to-one net metering for what you were consuming, but then if you generate excess, you can be paid a wholesale generation fee. However, the Indiana Supreme Court has vacated that ruling and is set to hear oral arguments on September 15th. So the fate of net metering in the state of Indiana is either bleak or up in the air, depending on your perspective. Now, in the good news department, Rhode Island governor has just signed the first in the nation pledge for 100% renewable energy for that state as of 2033. Had to throw in the good news there. A study by Wood Mackenzie has found that due to a couple of things, there has been the tariff controversy for Chinese manufactured solar panels that their assembly has been shifted to 4 countries in Southeast Asia: Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, and Burma. Well, that represents 85% of all utility scale solar and about 80% of all of the commercial solar modules that are used in the United States, and has had a severe disruption on the supply chain of panels that are coming into the U.S. In addition, right at the same time, the Uyghur Forced Labor Protection Act has stated that any solar materials that come from the Uyghur section of China have to prove that they have not been manufactured or mined using slave labor. And that represents a significant portion of all of the silicon and the polysilicon that's used within this industry as well as the semiconductor industry. Well, those have combined to severely disrupt the supply chain of solar within the U.S. President Biden recently announced a 2-year holiday from these tariffs to try and encourage the import of these materials. However, this study says that this should not affect the supply chain disruption that's already in place. In fact, they predict that there will be a 6.3 megawatt reduction in the growth of solar in 2022, and that will continue on into 2023. Now, this represents about 25% of the growth. In 2021, the U.S. installed 23.6 gigawatts of solar. The U.S. Department of Energy has released the 2022 Energy and Employment Report, and this is based on 2021 numbers, but they have found that the energy sector of the employment market has outperformed the general market, as a whole. There has been a 4% growth in the energy market versus a 2.8% employment growth overall. Some significant numbers out of this report were that solar employment was up 5.4%, but even more dramatically, electric vehicle manufacturing employment was up 26.2%, and hybrid electric vehicle employment was up 19.7%. The report also stated that the energy industry, or the energy sector, has a larger proportion of veterans employed, 9% of the workforce being veterans versus 6% overall. Despite all of this growth, the industry still has not seen employment numbers recover to the pre-pandemic levels. And that's the news from solar. I'll see you next week.